From the 1750s onward, more Igbo and Bakongo were brought to work on sugar plantations. Around 30% of enslaved persons coming to Jamaica were of Igbo descent, and about 20% of enslaved persons sent to Jamaica were of Bakongo descent. Yams are a big part of Igbo culture, and enslaved Igbo people brought these foodstuffs with them. The word for a specific type of yam called himba in Jamaica derives from the word mba, which means yam root. The Bakongo also contributed a lot to culture as well, especially in terms of dance.
To answer this question, I think we should cover the character of the Maroons. They were strong and resilient people who we know were rejecting colonial rule. We're talking about the kind of people that had no problem using their voices. They fought back against the British forces in Jamaica, and now they were having to advocate for themselves in Nova Scotia. Even after signing treaty after treaty, we know that they were betrayed. They were never given the things that they were promised, between the weather and the scarce resources. So they ended up petitioning the British government to relocate them to Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone was an option because Britain had already established a colony there called Freetown. Freetown was home to other freed Black people, including Black loyalists who also struggled in Nova Scotia. Based on my research, the Jamaican Maroons arrived in Freetown, Sierra Leone in the year 1800, and from there they started contributing to the community.
What is this obsession between Ghana and Jamaica? Really, what is this strong link between this African country and this small Caribbean island that makes the ties so unique and so strong? The majority of the enslaved Africans that were brought to Jamaica to enter the slave economy were from the Ashanti and the Akan regions of Ghana. So there is a direct historical genealogical tie between Jamaicans and Ghana from that perspective. Secondly, there is this obsession with reggae music all across the continent of Africa for sure, but talking about Ghana, Ghanaians really do love reggae and dancehall, and that is because a lot of the lyrics in reggae and dancehall talk about struggle, talk about poverty, rising from the ground, rising from the dirt to overcome many difficulties.
Sabi business? Everybody sabi. Everybody sabi. Right? Right? So if you look at the an interview that I did with a Maroon from Motown, you will see us talking about Sabi this and Sabi that. Right? Really? Sabi means no in old Jamaican, in case the old Jamaicans don't, the young Jamaicans don't know that. Sabi is a standard word to mean no in old-fashioned Jamaica. And Sabi is, of course, originally Portuguese, just like picking. But of course, in the early contact situation, the Portuguese played a particular role. And therefore, you get some of these Portuguese borrowings. They came into the language once, very early on, and they have been transmitted from St. Kitts, Barbados, to Suriname, to Jamaica, Western Jamaica, back to West Africa.
They tried to drown Africa in the Atlantic, but you can't kill a drumbeat. For 400 good years, they told us Jamaica was just a Caribbean island, a tropical getaway, Bob Marley and Jack Chicken, but nobody told you that when a Rastafarian chants Nyabinghi, he's speaking in Central Africa rhythms. Nobody told you that Burna Boy's reggae fusion isn't collaboration, it is homecoming. Nobody told you that from Congo to Kingston, the ancestors never stopped talking, they just switched languages. Today, the conversation is louder than ever. Ghana to Jamaica, Lagos to Trenchtown, the circle is closing and the West is terrified of what happens when Africa and the diaspora remember they are the same people. This is the story they don't want you to know. So share it everywhere. And guys, I got some couple of clips I want us to watch, and then I'll be back. We discuss everything. This is the Bantu Merchant.
From the 1750s onward, more Igbo and Bakongo were brought to work on sugar plantations. Around 30% of enslaved persons coming to Jamaica were of Igbo descent, and about 20% of enslaved persons sent to Jamaica were of Bakongo descent. Yams are a big part of Igbo culture, and enslaved Igbo people brought these foodstuffs with them. The word for a specific type of yam called himba in Jamaica derives from the word mba, which means yam root. The Bakongo also contributed a lot to culture as well, especially in terms of dance. This right here is a dance called the Dinkimini, originally called Ndingi in Kikongo. It's usually performed in funerals to cheer up the family of the deceased. It's also an erotic dance with a lot of hip movements to basically exemplify that at the end of the day, death is always defeated because, baby making will always win out. Feel free to comment and like for more routes to go.
It's even Jamaica Independence Day. We're basically even the same, like we're really even the same. Jamaica and Congo need to make it even one Independence Day. Cause bleaching, Jamaica do it, Congo do it. Ed Hardy, Jamaica do it, Congo do it. Colorful clothes, Jamaica do it, Congo do it. We need to just make it one Independence Day because you lot having your one, you lot having your one. Sexy coquette and shake dancing, we both do it. We're the same country, but you lot don't know, we don't even know it. We're one. Make our Independence Day joint. Make it unified. Unity. Do unity.
There's something that's been sitting heavy on my heart. Something that's been sitting proper heavy on my heart, yeah. And I think I need to address this and I want us to speak about it. There is a family lineage and there is a connection between Congolese people and Jamaican people. Mama Skilioski! I said it. There is a connection between the Zoba class and the Raj class. There is a connection. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I'm taking this for free. Because them guys bleach, we bleach. There were some questionable clothes, so do we. Apart from we eat the caterpillars, obviously they don't eat caterpillars, that's different. But we're related. We're definitely related, and I promise you we're related. Them are like having a lot of kids. Congolese people like having a lot of kids. They like eating. Congolese people like, bro, do you know what? Like, they love wearing.
Did you know that after slavery ended in Jamaica, thousands of people from Congo were brought to the island as indentured laborers? It's a little-known chapter of Caribbean history that shaped Jamaica's culture. In the 1840s, plantation owners were desperate for workers. They turned to Africa, recruiting Congolese people with promises of wages and return passage. These laborers faced harsh conditions and broken promises. Many never made it back home. But their legacy lives on. Congolese influences can be seen in Jamaican music, dance, and even language. Next time you hear Jamaican patois, listen closely. Some words have roots tracing back to Congo. It's a powerful reminder of the diverse threads woven into Jamaica's rich cultural tapestry. St. Thomas people, you guys are large. Like Skillybang says, it's all about the East Side. So unruly.
To answer this question, I think we should cover the character of the Maroons. They were strong and resilient people who we know were rejecting colonial rule. We're talking about the kind of people that had no problem using their voices. They fought back against the British forces in Jamaica, and now they were having to advocate for themselves in Nova Scotia. Even after signing treaty after treaty, we know that they were betrayed. They were never given the things that they were promised between the weather and the scarce resources. So they ended up petitioning the British government to relocate them to Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone was an option because Britain had already established a colony there called Freetown. Freetown was home to other freed Black people, including Black loyalists who also struggled in Nova Scotia. Based on my research, the Jamaican Maroons arrived in Freetown, Sierra Leone in the year 1800, and from there they started contributing to the community. And over time, they integrated into Freetown's Creole society. This Jamaican influence can be seen in the Goombay genre of music, which helped to shape Sierra Leonean sound as well as other countries in West Africa. Of course, you know that the Caribbean and Africa have many connections, but I'm sure there are more stories like this one that aren't exactly at the forefront of things.
My Sierra Leoneans, have you heard Jamaican patois and you understood what they were saying? In patois they say, mi deya. In Creole we say, dem deya, we deya, adeya. In patois they say, how you do. In Creole we say, how you do. Little history lesson, and if you're Sierra Leonean, you probably already knew this. Sierra Leoneans are descendants of Fred African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans. Jamaican Maroons, enslaved to Jamaicans, fled to Sierra Leone. The capital of Sierra Leone is Freetown, land of the free, you get it. So Jamaicans now we fumble.
What is this obsession between Ghana and Jamaica? Really, what is this strong link between this African country and this small Caribbean island that makes the ties so unique and so strong? The majority of the enslaved Africans that were brought to Jamaica to enter the slave economy were from the Ashanti and the Akan regions of Ghana. So there is a direct historical genealogical tie between Jamaicans and Ghana from that perspective. Secondly, there is this obsession with reggae music all across the continent of Africa for sure, but talking about Ghana, Ghanaians really do love reggae and dancehall, and that is because a lot of the lyrics in reggae and dancehall talk about struggle, talk about poverty, rising from the ground, rising from the dirt to overcome many difficulties. And this is really a struggle that many people across the world, but particularly in Ghana, relate to and can understand. And so they gravitate a lot to reggae music and have this deep love for the music, and a lot of their own artists even emulate that style. The third thing is that we do have a lot of ties when it comes to our language patterns. Fun fact, many Ghanaians can understand patois. And if you hear some Ghanaians speak, a lot of the things we as Jamaicans say in patois are actually derivatives, are derived from the way Ghanaians speak. So we also have a tie there with language, because they're all about uniting Black people and reaching out to this wider Pan-African population. And they see connecting with Jamaica, with Black people all across the world, as one way to continue to reach out to achieve this African unity. So those are just a couple of things that really make the tie and the connection between Jamaica and Ghana really strong. Let me know if you know of any others down below. One love.
Sabi business, everybody sabi. Everybody sabi, right? Right. So if you look at the an interview that I did with a Maroon from Motown, you will see us talking about Mina Sabi this and Mina Sabi that, right? Really? Sabi means no in old Jamaican, in case the old Jamaicans don't, the young Jamaicans don't know that. Sabi is a standard word to mean no in old-fashioned Jamaica. And Sabi is of course originally Portuguese, just like Pekin. But of course, in the early contact situation, the Portuguese played a particular role. And therefore, you get some of these Portuguese borrowings. They came into the language once, very early on, and they've been transmitted from St. Kitts, Barbados, to Suriname, to Jamaica, Western Jamaica, back to West Africa. All right. In 1796, there was the rebellion, the Trelawney Rebellion. And the British rounded them up, put them on a ship, first of all to Nova Scotia, and eventually from Nova Scotia to Sierra Leone. Now, notice Western Jamaica, those are the dead people, those are the Midewa. They end up in Sierra Leone, and you've got Sierra Leone Creole. Sierra Leone Creole, Midewa, right? Right. And the Sierra Leoneans were in fact the people used, these Creoles, Sierra Leone, used to colonize southern Nigeria. That's where you get the Adiwak story. So your day comes via Western Jamaica from Suriname. It ain't go the other way. And you see all this thing about Pekin? Pekin is of course, is the most common Jamaican form is Picni, right? Picani. But say I come from Ghana and it's Picnin. In Suriname is Pekin, right? Or Pichin. So there's nothing special about that.
When a Kumina drum sounds in St. Thomas, Jamaica, it's not just music, it is a message. When Burna Boy drops a reggae bassline, it's not fusion, it is memory. And when a Rastaman invokes Jah with a Nyabinghi chant, he is not inventing spirituality, he is channeling his Congolese great grandfather who survived the Middle Passage by hiding God in a rhythm. They tried to drown Africa in the Atlantic, But guess what? They failed to kill the drum beat. You can only make it louder. And this is the untold story of how Jamaica became Africa's echo chamber, and how today, 400 years later, that echo is becoming a roar. Let's be clear about something the history book loves to sanitize. Jamaica was not just colonized. It was turned into a human warehouse. Between 1655 and 1838, over 1 million enslaved Africans were dragged through Kingston Harbor. 1 million. They came from 4 main regions. The Congo-Angola zone in Central Africa. These are your Kumina ancestors, the ones who brought the spiritual technology of possession, ancestor worship, and sacred drumming. The Akan or Koromante people from the modern-day Ghana warriors organizes the backbone of the Maroon resistance. Karjo and Quinani, Akampong, those ain't just random names. They are Akan Day names, leadership titles. The Yoruba and Igbo lands of Nigeria, whose cosmologies birthed Jamaica's Mayal and revival traditions, where spirit possessions meets Christian veneer, and the Senegambia region, whose funeral songs and call and response rhythms became the blueprint for Jamaican folk music like Dinkimini. Now, here's what the colonizers didn't count on: cultural resilience. You can chain a body, you can't chain a memory. You can ban a language, but you can't ban a rhythm. So the enslaved did something so revolutionary, they remade Africa in exile. They hid their gods in Catholic saints. They turned plantation drums into coded communication networks. They called it syncretism. I call it genius. Let me take you to the mountains. 1738. The British Empire, the most powerful military force on earth by then, just signed a peace treaty with escaped Africans. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. The Maroons, led by Akan descendants like Kajo and the legendary Queen Nani, fought the British to a standstill. They used guerrilla warfare tactics rooted in West African military strategy. They organized council based on the Akan stool system. They beat talking drums that the British couldn't decode, and they won their freedom. Not given, they won it. That's the first proof that Africa didn't die in Jamaica. It went underground, got organized, and re-emerged as political resistance. Now, fast forward to 1800s, slavery officially ends, but Central Africans keep arriving, this time as indentured laborers. They bring Kumina, a full-blown Congo spiritual system. The ceremonies use Bantu Congo words. The rhythms mirror Central African circles dances. Etnographers call it a Congolese religion born again in Jamaica. So in 2014, the Smithsonian repatriated a Kumina drum that had been sitting in a museum for decades. When it returned to Jamaica, the elders gathered for a ceremony. One woman even said the ancestors are coming home. Think about that. A drum, an object, was treated like a repatriated prisoner of war, because in African cosmology, objects carry memory. That drum was not just wood and skin, it was a portal. Now, let's talk about the sound that changed the world. Reggae. Reggae didn't come from nowhere. It came from Buru drumming, a tradition of protest brought by Akan and Kongo people. Buru probably derives from the Akan word borbor, meaning drum. In the 1930s and 40s, Buru players took those rhythms into Kingston's ghetto, fused them with metal and ska, and birthed reggae. Rastafarians took it further. They adopted the same 3-drum structure for Nyabinghi. Ceremonies, bars, funde, repeater, the heartbeat of Africa, literally. So listen to a Nyabinghi chant, then listen to a Congolese or a Ghanaian drum cycle. You'll hear the same syncopation, the same conversation, the same ancestor speaking. Bob Marley didn't invent that sound. He channeled it, and when he sent it back to Africa in the 70s, it hit like a revelation. In Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Marley wasn't just a musician, he was a prophet. His anthems became soundtracks for independence movements across the continent. And here is where it gets emotional for me. I grew up hearing my grandmother humming songs. She said she said it came from the old people. She couldn't tell me what the words meant. She just knew they were important. She knew they were not English. She knew they were ours. Years later, I learned that those were Kumina chants, Bantu Congo phrases passed down orally for 2 centuries. My grandmother was carrying African linguistics in her throat without even knowing the language. And that's what colonization does. It fractures memory, but it can't erase it. You end up with people carrying fragments of a culture they can barely name, but feel it in their bones. And that's why when Burna Boy teamed up with Akan on Aboboya, filming across Jamaica, Nigeria, I almost cried, not because it was nostalgic, but because it was complete. The circle was closing, Lagos to Kingston, Congo to Kumina, and the conversation our ancestors started in 1655 was happening again. But this time, we have the language, the technology, and the power to own it. Let me tell you what the West fears most: a unified black world. Not black people singing and dancing for their entertainment. A black world that remembers it built pyramids, organized empires, and survived the greatest crime in human history. When Ghana launched the Year of Return in 2019, inviting the diaspora home, something shifted. Jamaican Rastafarians walked through Cape Coast castles, the same dungeons their ancestors were shaped from. Ghanaian talking drums met Jamaican Nyabinghi beats. It wasn't symbolic, it was spiritual warfare. Because the moment Africa and Caribbean recognize they are the same people, separated by an ocean, the global power structure has a problem. That's why they try to keep us focused on our differences. Africans sold Africans. Jamaicans are too aggressive. Africans are too traditional. Divide and conquer, 21st century edition. But the youth aren't buying it, especially me. I'm not buying that. TikTok and Instagram are filled with Afrobeat dancehall collaborations. Nigerian DJs sample reggae. Jamaican influencers dance to our piano. The cultural DNA is rewriting itself in real time. So here's what I need you to understand. Jamaica is not inspired by Africa. Jamaica is Africa abroad. Africa with a Caribbean accent. Every ring game, every battle song, every irie, that's not a slang, that's ancestry. The Maroons didn't just resist slavery, they preserved a political memory of African statehood. Kumina didn't just survive colonization, it carried Congo cosmology across an ocean and kept it alive for 400 years. Reggae didn't just influence Afrobeat, it reminded Africa of its own sound. And today the drumbeat that crossed the Atlantic is coming home, refined, electrified, and unstoppable. This is not history, this is present tense. From Congo to Kingston, Lagos to Montego Bay, Dakar to Trenchtown, the ancestors tried to tell us the drum never stopped beating. We just forgot how to listen, but we are remembering it now. And when Africa and the diaspora finally reconnect, not as tourists and hosts, but as one people with one story, the world will never be the same again. So when you hear that reggae bass line or feel that Afrobeat vibration you can't quite name, don't call it coincidence. Call it what it is. Your ancestors are speaking. They tried to drown us in the Atlantic, but we were seeds. If this opened your eyes, hit the subscribe button, share it with every African and Caribbean person you know, and drop a comment down below telling me where your ancestors are from. Is it Ghana, Congo? Is it Nigeria? Is it Senegal? Tell me in the comments. Then let us keep it real. This is the Bantu Merchant. Thank you for supporting me. Until next time.